And so I started leaning into God's truth and who I am and asking those hard questions. Why am I so burned out? Why am I filled with just every day being consumed with busy work? And as I tapped into that and really started asking those questions and realizing how much power I do have in myself as being me, I started finding more joy and fulfillment and freedom. And so it was in that moment where I started looking at truly what are the gifts that God's given me? Why am I so burned out, right? If I love what I do, why am I so burned out? And really, Victoria, the root came down to I wasn't being authentic. I was not being authentically me. I kind of, through my journey of busy work and burnout, I started to conform to what other people thought I should be or do or act. I was wandering aimlessly.
This episode is brought to you by me. Yes, by me, Victoria Odekumaya. I'm a brand photographer and strategist based locally here in Indiana. And I love helping women, small business owners, and professionals with side hustles build and elevate their brand. So if you're in the market and looking for someone that would thoroughly help you create a beautiful imagery for your brand and help you connect to your target audience, I'm your girl. So why choose me? Because I offer a beautiful, luxurious celebrity photo shoot experience for all of my clients. The celebrity experience includes professional hair and makeup, wardrobe styling. I serve wine and chocolate covered strawberries, and I'm playing your favorite music because it's important to me that you look and feel great to create the images that we know will truly connect with your audience. So what are you waiting for? If you're looking for photography to help you elevate your brand, call on your girl because I got you. So hi, Jill. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. I am so excited to be talking to you. I know that you just finished an amazing retreat. We're going to get to that. But before we go on, tell us a little bit about you. For those that don't know who you are, which I find it hard to believe here in Indiana. I was stalking you for a very long time before we finally got connected, but I'm going to hold my horses and let you talk. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So I'll dive into that. But first, just Victoria, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so happy I got connected with you. And if you were stalking me, you should have just reached out because I have loved our connection already. But if you have not met me, I'm Jill O'Boyle. I'm a high performance coach, and I specialize in helping busy professional women work less, get more done, and really rise up to their true potential. And so my mission really in my coaching business has been to empower women to really tap into their true identities, their gifts, and just build this community and culture around authenticity, purpose, and really growth. And so that's been my mission, and that's kind of my my why of why I love to help people.
That's amazing. So tell us, how did you get started?
Yeah, great question, right? Because every coach definitely has a story. So my background was in event management and project management. And so I really excelled in my career for quite some time. I used my natural gifts of motivation, organization, discernment, and really grew in my leadership through my project management career. And so that's kind of my background, but it was through that journey of growing in my career where I reached a point. I was naturally gifted in some of those events, planning trade shows and doing marketing for our clients. But it was in that moment that I kind of lost touch with my why. And I heard a voice from God, really, who kind of sat me down. It was a moment where I was really in a moment of despair, burned out myself. And I heard a very distinct voice from God say, you know, your value, Jill, doesn't come from what you are doing. Your value is who you are. And I started to kind of lean into that truth. and really did some soul searching because I loved what I did, right? Like I always, and when I coach my clients, it's sometimes burnout, you can love what you do, but sometimes we're called to a higher purpose. Yeah. And so I started leaning into God's truth and who I am and asking those hard questions. Why am I so burned out? Why am I filled with just every day being consumed with busy work? And as I tapped into that and really started asking those questions and realizing how much power I do have in myself as being me, I started finding more joy and fulfillment and freedom. And so it was in that moment where I started looking at truly what are the gifts that God's given me? Why am I so burned out, right? If I love what I do, why am I so burned out? And really, Victoria, the root came down to I wasn't being authentic. I was not being authentically me. I kind of, through my journey of busy work and burnout, I started to conform to what other people thought I should be or do or act. I was wandering aimlessly. I was just going through the motions of life with no clear purpose. Wow. I was just doing the task, right? Every day just felt like Groundhog's Day. Every day, just getting up, going, and part of me got to that point, but I'm like, is this it? Like, this is all that life's supposed to be? Is we just get up, we go to work, we put food on the table for our kids, we go to bed? Like, there's got to be something more. My soul was just thriving for that. I'm like, there's got to be more. Like, I want to leave an impact, a legacy. So there was that. So authenticity, I was definitely not being that. I had forgotten who I really was. And then I had no purpose and I wasn't growing. And I'm a natural person that loves to learn and grow, but I was becoming really stagnant in my career. And so although I was growing in my career and I was achieving all the things, I wasn't growing spiritually or personally. And that was when I really reached that hard question of like, what am I doing? Like, if my life ended tomorrow, what am I doing to make a difference in this life? What kind of legacy am I leaving for my kids? Like, what am I going to be remembered by? And it was in that moment that I realized how much I had let my self-worth get all wrapped up in my career and my identity, and that really, really voice of God that said, Jill, it's not about what you're doing. It's who you are, who you're becoming, or who I'm transitioning you to be. And so long-winded answer to your question of how I got into coaching, but it was a lot of just diving into who I am and realizing that once I got back in touch with who I am, I had so much joy and fulfillment and freedom. I was searching for all those things externally, and I really had to dive more into myself. And so, I landed on my own coach, and she really also helped take, God's truth and just a lot of other really deep questions, and kind of realized I've been a coach my whole life. I've always had a natural gift of intuition and discernment. Most of the people that I worked with in my corporate career would always come to me with, Joe, let me just pick your brain for a few minutes. You always give really sound advice. And so it's just kind of like pulling back the layers of your life to realize what's always been true about you and where is life going to take you next. And so, it was a spur of a moment. I finally was like, I'm going to tap into this area and help people find the same freedom and joy that I found with getting back in all those areas of my own life. And I love it.
Yeah, that is so powerful, because when you were talking about going through the rigmarole of, routine, wake up and go back to do all of the things that we're supposed to do, especially as moms, women, business owners, like this a never ending task. And even if you start out loving what you do, sometimes, the joy is just sucked out because of that burnout, because we maybe forget, like you were saying. I feel like you are so needed. What you're doing is so incredibly important in helping us come back to the center of why we're doing what we're doing. So, wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, thank you. I love it. And I think, through that journey of burnout, I'm very open about sharing my story. Is the other thing that I think that I really wanted to help others with is what usually happens is when you're not authentic and you forget essentially who you are or why you matter. You, like I said, you kind of do walk aimlessly through the world. And it's almost like you just have glasses over you and you're just doing what everybody else wants you to do. And in that moment, that's where I found myself. And I found myself being so far removed from who I was that I was caught up in a whole different situation, scenario, shattering like, an issue with my marriage, basically. I speak openly in my book that, I found myself in the middle of an affair. My marriage started slipping. My relationship with my kids started slipping. I started drinking a lot. So you really don't realize how much burnout can affect you until all of a sudden you're in these moments and you're like, whoa, how did I get here? Right. And so that was the pivotal moment where I found myself extremely lost and broken and empty and like completely not me. Right. I was just like, who is this girl? Like look in the mirror, like who is this? And so you find yourself in those moments of despair, and those are the questions you start asking yourself: is how did I get here? But that's why God is so good, because He really does take your brokenness and can use that, for good. I have a podcast as well where I talk about battles to breakthrough, and so sometimes it's in those moments of despair, if you're willing to do the soul work, and you're really willing to maybe hire the coach or really dive in just all to your own self and ask those questions, there are some amazing blessings that can come through brokenness. And I always say brokenness will lead to a great breakthrough if you're willing to just truly ask yourself the hard questions and also point the questions back to yourself. Like sometimes it's in those moments where everybody, especially in burnout and busy work and jobs or whatever, it's, let me point the fingers out, right? It's my boss, it's my culture, it's my kids driving me nuts, it's my husband driving me nuts, it's all of you, right? And don't get me wrong, that's exactly where I went too. I was like, well, this is why my life is in shambles. It's because of this.
Wow.
But it was only in that moment of stillness where I was like, well, wait a minute, Jill. There's another person involved in this. That's you right here. And there's some habits that you have formed or you've accepted or you've started to believe that are lies and not true about your own self that you can start to create new, healthier habits. So yeah, it's in that journey of really soul searching and discovery.
Wow. That is so deep, Jill. And thank you so much for being honest and authentic, because that's exactly what you're helping everybody else do, And so I have a lot of questions here in terms of how you help people, because I love that you're using, all the things that you're going through or you've gone through to help, you've turned it around by the help of God too, because I know you're a Christian, I am too. So we definitely believe in the power of God in all of this too. But what about those people that are not sure or they're not aware that they're sleeping yet? Or they are not aware of the burnout. They are not aware of the, rigmarole of like the activities, and because I think that when people get to that point of like, okay, now realizing, or maybe something huge or catastrophic happened, sometimes it's easy to identify, right? But what are some of the things that we can look to in our lives right now that, that help us to pay attention or, say, okay, I need help from Jill before something happens?
Absolutely. Great question. So the one thing I always say is like, a lot of times when your passions start to become a burden to you, right? Because I used to get up and love to go to my job every single day. Like it's honestly, I loved it. And I loved it so much that I got my identity all wrapped up in it. But when you start to notice that the one thing that you used to love is now becoming a burden, you're probably already there. You're already probably burned out. So to take that a step back, what are the signs that you should be looking for? Some things to also think about is ask yourself the questions. When was the last time you did something for you? When was the last time you did something fun, that lit you up inside. If you are having a hard time thinking about that, there's probably another force in your life. And I'm not saying that because burnout isn't just in your job, right? So I'm not saying it could be just your job. I'm saying there could be another force in your relationships, in your circle of influence. There's something that has become a bigger priority, right? And so think about that. What is depleting your soul? And sometimes what happens is usually when we are so busy doing, the first thing we do is we take away the things that actually bring us joy and fulfillment and love, right? We take away the date nights with our husbands, or we take away going out to the park with your kids, or you take away going out with a girlfriend, right? Because you're just too busy or you just don't have time. And I am very, very adamant about not doing that. Keep those calendar dates, because the more that you rob yourself of the joy and the things that light you up, the more that you'll find yourself being burned out. It's all about reprioritizing your life to what matters most. And you asked like how I help my clients. That's the biggest thing that we do is we look at, if they're coming to me and they say, Jill, I'm burnout, whether that's in my job or with all the demands of life. I have 4 kids. I have a husband that's needy too. I'm in PTO. I'm in all these things. And I just want to figure out, how do I get everything done and still have a life, right? Like that's usually some of the questions. Like, I'm burned out. I'm busy. I want to just figure out, how do I manage it all? And so I love that question, because I was there too. I was like, oh my gosh. And so the first thing we do is we say, well, what is everything? What is everything that you're doing? What is everything? You tell me. Let's break it all down. And does it all matter? That's step 1. And so we really dive into, where are you spending your time? And because that was a huge eye opener for me, right? So we dive into like, where are you spending your time? Because how you spend your time is how you live your life. And so really looking at that and doing exercises that say, wow, I did not realize how much time. I say family is like absolutely my number 1. I say God is absolutely my number 1. But on my paper here, I have not spent any time this week with my family, or I have not spent any time in the Word or spiritual. And I'm like, okay, well, does your family bring you joy? Yes. Does God fill your soul when you're with Him? Absolutely. Why is that not a priority? So do you see where I'm going? So we have to kind of restructure and reprioritize. We talk about core values, and then we get into habits, because habits shape how you live too, right? But the great thing about habits is we can change habits, right? And we can change some of these habits we form because we just have a really, really skewed vision about ourselves. And so the great thing is we can rewire that thinking, and we can rewire those habits and create healthier habits. So it's a lot. I always get the question, or from my clients, usually after midway through, they're like, okay, Jill, are you like a business coach, or are you like my therapist?
I was getting ready to say that too. Like, tell us about that. How do you distinguish?
Yeah. So, and the answer is, I'm not a therapist, and I am not, licensed to give you that kind of advice. But I think what people find in my coaching is the number one thing is I'm very, as you saw earlier, very open, very direct, and very authentic. I spent too many years not being that, and I realized where that led me. And so the conversations, what I hope and what I've found with working with my clients is I give them a space to just be real. Because let's be honest, this world makes it kind of hard to be real sometimes. And so I want people to come, and I want you to just, I will tell you all my dirty laundry, because we are human and we make mistakes, and I'm still going to make mistakes. And so I give a space where they can just say, this is the shit that's going on, Jill. And I'm like, you know what? I was there too. And let's just dive in and let's talk about it, and let's get you unstuck. Let's get you to living a life that you love, free from burnout and busy work. And it's not overnight success, right? Because habits take time, but it's at least a platform to get them set up to grow, to get back more into their authentic self, which is going to help them tremendously with burnout. And it's going to start realigning them to who they were made to be. And that's one area that I love to dive into is really their gifts, their strengths. So I have a on-purpose assessment that we do. Like, what is your purpose? We tap into like their working genius area. Everybody has a genius zone. And so what I found in my coaching as well is a lot of times people are burned out because most of their job responsibilities are in their frustration zone. Absolutely things that they're just not gifted at. That's not wrong. It's just that's just not how God wired you. So we talk about that. And I say, okay, how can we leverage, what kind of communication style do we need to format to either talk to your, if they're working for a corporate company, how can we leverage this information to approach it to your boss to say, hey, look, this is kind of why I've been stuck, but I'm really great at this. How could we leverage that? And I could go more into that kind of role, right? Or if you're your own entrepreneur, how do we figure out, how do we move more of your working genius? And maybe it's time you hire somebody for those frustration zones. Maybe it's time you get an admin, right? Or delegate, right? If you have a team, if you're a control freak, like I used to be as project manager, you got a great team that can probably help you with those. And you don't have to do it all. You got to let that Enneagram 3 high achiever perfectionist go. Speaking from example.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's actually a good segue into my next question, because as you were describing what you do and how you help people, I feel like a lot of people can identify with needing your services, but maybe you have a niche, you have a specific audience that you can help, because you've also talked about delegating. So who are your target audience? Like, who are the people that, if they're listening right now, they're like, that's me, I need this help, Jill is my person. So who are those? Because I can count, I know my sisters, even myself, so many people that can identify with just being busy. I feel like it's a society, right? So but who are your target audience?
Yeah, so my target audience are high achieving professional women, right? They are the women that are achievers. They want to grow, right? But they have reached a point. So usually I relate to a lot of mid to senior level managers in corporate, because that was me. I was that level where I had grown in my career, but I reached a point and I was like, okay, I'm good at this, but I'm just not loving it. Like something is missing, right? So it's usually I find those women relate to me well because I can relate back to them, right? And we can just talk real life talk. So it's high achieving professional women in corporate, but it's also entrepreneurs like you and I, female entrepreneurs who are trying to do all the things. They are busy and they're burned out because they are trying to do all the things. And it could be, like I was just saying, they might be trying to do too much of their frustration zone. And it might just be a point that we need to make that very clear and delegate. It's also the people that are in a transition period. So sometimes it's those corporate women that are like, I just need the breakthrough productivity habits that you offer from being in my project management days. Those are the things that I have a lot of in my toolbox with to just get me unstuck. I love my job, but I just want to figure out how do I manage my time better. But there's also people that are in that transition period where they found themselves like me, where they're reaching a point where they're like, I just don't know that this corporate world is for me anymore, but I don't know what else I would do. I've been in it 20 years. And I love that question because I'm like, oh, you're tied to your career and you don't even know it, but there's so much you can do and let me help you find it.
Yes. Wow, that's incredible. So as you were talking about that, I'm like, it seems like every small business owner, at least the women, we need to have a session with you because,
Yeah.
in a transition to owning a business as opposed to in corporate where everything is pretty much laid out for you. You're just doing your job. I've found that as a business owner, you're the marketer, you're the PR, you're the branding expert, you're the salesperson, you're the admin, you're the CEO, and we're going to get busy, So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have something in your program for people where, maybe they're like just to sit down, because life gets busy. And, just as a female, as a mom, but then when you start adding business into it and you're wearing multiple hats, that's a lot,
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So I offer probably something like that. Well, a free consultation for sure. Like just connect with me and let's just see where you're at, where you're struggling. Like I always want to do like a quick 30-minute clarity discussion. But the other breakthrough thing is just the one-off of the Working Genius workshop where I will send you an assessment and you'll have a 10-minute assessment and then we'll do a 60-minute coaching call to review your results. And that's where you're going to find out what is your genius zone, your actual gifts. What's the area? There's usually 2 in the middle that you can do. But if you stay there too long, you'll probably burn yourself out. And then what's the frustration zone? And then we look at those and we see where in your line of work right now, especially as a small business owner, where is most of your time being spent? Usually we find that it's that frustration zone. And so I'll coach you through that on how to leverage that. And then we dive in to just how can we use this information to maximize your productivity, enhance your professional impact, and just drive better results, not only for your business, but for you mentally, and we'll get into some of that kind of stuff with your authenticity, purpose, and then where do you need to grow? So I would love to offer anybody that's listening right now. I have a special for that, so they can just reach out to me directly. Probably the best way, if you just go to jillaboyle.com, you can find my information there. Probably the easiest way, or on LinkedIn, just send me a DM at Jillaboyle.
That's great. And I'm going to put all of the, links in the comments as well so that people can easily access that. So I want to shift gears a little bit into the branding and the marketing, world. Because usually, I feel like there's a ton of coaches out there now. Like you open up your social media and there is, a coaching here, coaching, this, and there's, I'm learning now that there's a difference between a life coach and a business coach and all kinds of things, right? So my question for you, this is the Own Your Brand show, is what sets you apart, right? What makes you different from, because a lot of people may really be in need of your services, and yes. However, they might still be like, okay, why should I go with you as opposed to all the hundreds of other people that they're seeing on social media?
Absolutely. So I think the one thing that sets me apart probably the most is my hands-on approach. So I'm all about accountability. And so if you ask my clients, they say, she holds you accountable, but she does it in such a kind and graceful way. So it's just really, I like to dive in. I like to work with my clients the way that they like to work best, because again, I'm very in tune that everybody has different strengths and gifts. And so I tap into what works best for them. And then we structure the coaching sessions like that. So I think that's the biggest one, is the accountability, the kind of hands-on, like, I'm not just going to have you watch a video and then go do some things. I'm going to I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to make sure that the things that we talked about that week is being done. The other thing, from my clients' perspectives, I always prefer to have testimonials from them. I do believe in the power of stillness. And so one of my biggest things that I ask my clients to do is to make necessary, committed time to zone out the world. So it's intentional, quiet time where I have workbooks of journals that I give them that goes deeper than we're going to go probably on our coaching calls. And those are some of the most breakthrough moments some of my clients have had, is I don't ask for them to really share with me what they've wrote, but many times they do, because it's so powerful in those moments that they say, I have to share with you this week's lesson when I'm in my journal. And so it's these very intentional questions to get them rewiring their thinking of how they're spending their time, getting them back in touch with who they are. So I definitely think that's one. And then the third thing I would say that sets me apart is just truly my authenticity with our coaching. I'm as probably real as you're going to get. So I know that people appreciate that.
Yes, I can testify to all of what you said, the accountability, the authenticity. I think that, just in my conversation with you as we've been working together over some weeks and months, right? It's just, being authentic. And I know that you just did a program, which unfortunately was it last week, right?
Yeah, last Friday.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because even I have heard from some of the people that attended that it was very, very powerful. So I know you offer one-to-one, but you also do, events as well too.
Yeah. So I offer the one-to-one coaching. Group coaching is coming as well. And then retreats and events. So we had our first 828 retreat this past Friday. And yes, it was a slam dunk. It was awesome. So that retreat is really around those two fundamental things that I love to talk about: authenticity, purpose, and then it is a faith base, right? We're talking about who God has called you to be. So it's a full day retreat. So this one was on a Friday. We'll have these every quarter, once a quarter. So the next one will be in January. And just we kind of asked for feedback in the room, what days of the weeks work best. And so we had some feedback, like a Saturday would be better, than taking off a work day. So I think we'll just tweak it. Like this next quarter will be a Saturday, then we'll maybe go back to a Friday. But it's a full day retreat to really turn down the noise of the world just for, 9 to 4. And we have a whole workbook where we give the women time in the room to really kind of deep dive into the workbook. There's some videos that we share. We master their core values. We talk about, prioritization, where are you spending your time, your core values, and then we do an on-purpose assessment where they take a 10-minute assessment. And so they walk out with a 2-word purpose statement. And I've done lots of quizzes, lots of assessments on purpose, and this is probably the one that I've found that is the most true. And we went around the room, and everybody that read off the 2-word purpose statement could find a time in their life where they're like, this rings true for me. So it was pretty powerful. There was a lot of just vulnerability in the room. Some of the testimonials we got back was, you gave me a space to find my which was powerful. The other ones was I co-host it with my friend Anna Campbell, who's the vice president of the National Christian Foundation. So it was me and her that have been hosting these retreats. But the other feedback was that as one woman says, I've went to many other events, and this is the only event where I really felt like the leaders of the organization were just truly like just authentic and like down to earth, and like it didn't feel like pressure. It was just a welcoming environment and space. So of course I love that. I'm like, that's what I'm trying to create here. So
I know that it was great because everything that we've been talking about today, this is also a testament to the authenticity, right? Like you, and also creating that safe space for people, right? And I know that those people that attended, at least what I heard was also that they just felt, like you said, vulnerable and just being able to share. Because sometimes when you have, when you've been in a space, you're looking for breakthrough and you don't feel safe to share, that makes it hard.
Yeah.
It's like, and especially when you spend a whole day. So I'm looking forward to the next one because I know it's going to be amazing. But I know you also have something else coming up. Your author, we didn't mention that you wrote a book, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So I have, it's actually right here. So it is called The Intuitive Goddess. And so this is a co-author book. So that there's like 15 other women, and they are stories of transformation and healing and growth. And so this was just a godsend as well, where I really have I'd love to write always. And, but life goes on, right? But I've always said I will write a book one day. And so it was just an opportunity. That's the power of networking. That's the power of women, right? Get yourself in the right room. Opportunities will come. And so it was an opportunity. I heard very loud and clear that God said, share your story publicly, bigger, larger, on stages. So it gave me an opportunity to write my story. Share my story of, how brokenness, brokenness, being lost, filling myself with an identity that was wrapped up in my career, and how that led me to a moment of despair. But it was in those moments of despair and brokenness that beauty was formed. And our marriage has been restored 1,000% better, just a wild story of God's faithfulness and grace, and that whatever storm you're going through in life, just know there is beauty forming and there will be better days coming, and just trust that. Because I always say, I always use the acronym, rainbows exist to prove that, right? Even after a bad storm in your life, something beautiful can come out of it.
Yeah.
And that is just the wrap up of what I think my story is and is still going to become. It's just at the tip of the iceberg. And that's why it's so great to just know that sometimes these moments that you're in life, it feels so dark and it feels so heavy and you feel lost and you're like, why me? And I challenge you to reverse that question, because I sat in that question for a long time of why me? And why did this happen to me? And why did I do this? And all of those things was then turn that question around. So why is it happening for me? And sometimes it's in those moments that it's happening for you for a reason. And for me, it was, I have a story to be shared. I have a natural gift of communication and motivation and discernment to help others that are going through some of those storms of life, whatever that is, whatever mess you might be in. It's not a mess at all. It's going to be your message someday. And so tap into that.
Right. And so speaking of sharing, one of the other things that I like to talk about on the show is how you are sharing your gift with others or making them know of your gift. So remember when I talked about how I was stalking you? I think you're doing a phenomenal job marketing yourself, because I know you are on, obviously you have your own podcast. You show up on social media. I know we've done a photo shoot together. The first time I read about you was through an article from the Indie Maven, and I have such a lot of respect for that organization. So I know you're doing a lot of, in your speaking, a lot of amazing things. And you also you're collaborating with the VIP Center too. But tell us a little bit about some of the other marketing efforts, or maybe just speak to some of that, because I feel like small business owners, right? It's not enough for us to just be talented and want to help people, but if nobody knows what we're doing, it kind of defeats the purpose of wanting to help people. But you've done such an amazing job of, making yourself known out in the community. So if you want to share a little bit about that with us, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, first, having your photos taken by Victoria definitely helps to just make those social media photos just pop. But you are your best gift. You are your best gift. And so if you are keeping yourself a secret, you're doing the world a disservice, really, right? The world, I always say this, the world needs more of you, your true authentic self. And so show up in the places that you want to be seen, right? So for me, I know that I want to support high achieving women. And so my goal is to put myself in places where those people are, like the Indie Maven, and other organizations in our community. I know that I am a faith-based woman, right? So I've been getting really involved in NCF, our National Christian Foundation, the Women Doing Well. That's another outlet. They're doing a Better Together event. So those are the places where I know I can help the women in the room, and they help me too, right? It's all about you're gonna pour into them, and they're gonna pour into you, and that is how connections are truly made. Some of my best clients really come from referrals, and it's because people get to know, like, and trust you. We all know that. And so, yeah, I think just when I started to do this in my own business, of course, you have the imposter syndrome. Of course, you have the self-doubt. And then if you're anything like me, you tend to then scroll social media and you see like you said, all the other coaches that seem to have it all together and their programs are flying off the charts. And that can be really, really hard, right? And you're like, oh, okay, I'm just not even going to go out there and do it today. But if you don't take the first step, you'll be right where you are a year from now.
Yes.
And just know that all those other people that you're comparing yourself to have the same self-doubt. Like, our inner critic is loud.
Yes.
Mine is called Margot, and she likes to show up about every day. And I have to tell her to go away. But yeah, I think for me, my best marketing advice, honestly, is just to show up. And it's a work in progress too. Like, I love that Victoria says I'm at all the places. That's what I'm trying to be. But get the platforms. Like, the book is an outlet. The podcast is an outlet. Honestly, being on podcasts like this is a great way to enhance your brand. It's why I created mine as well. Not only because it's going to help Jill Boyle Communications, but it's also like a way that I can just help other people. That's my gift. Is my why in life is to contribute to the success of others. Like, that is 100% my why in life. And so it's like, I love when I can have women come in on my podcast and I can be like, do you see what this girl is doing? Go follow her.
Yes, I can identify with that too, because for me, it's about helping people be seen, known, and heard. And so everything that I want to do is about, wrapped around that. And I love when you talked about authenticity, even when you're showing up in your marketing or in your branding, like, you still really need to be authentic, right? You need to be yourself. And so that's why I think like a meeting with you is so important, because sometimes it's easy for us to lose our ways in the busyness of life, right? And so I, strongly encourage for those that are listening, like, you have free consultations, right? Yeah. So take advantage of that, because you never know, right? Like, sometimes you just need someone to just hear what you're going through. Like, we are busy. That's just the bottom line of it. And it's so easy to get off track, right? But we want to keep being authentic so that we can reach, the maximum, what God has really created us to be. So that's really cool. Yeah. Like, do you have any last words or anything else you want to add? I know you have a program coming up. I said that earlier, but we kind of digressed from that. Like, you want to share with us about that?
Yeah, no. The program that's coming up, really, the one that I was talking about before was for the A28 retreat. So anybody that went through that, they have a great opportunity at a lower price to do a group coaching program. But the offer that I would love to offer for this podcast is the the Rise and Thrive Working Genius workshop, where we'll just dive in for 60 minutes and really do your assessment, figure out what your natural strengths are. And then we'll do a 60-minute coaching session. Because sometimes that's all people need. And then other times that's just the iceberg, where they're like, this is good, but let's figure out, how do we go deeper? And so, the one thing that I love is the one-to-one coaching, because we can just get real and personal and honest. And so I would say my recommendation for that is, if you are stuck right now, one of my clients, she said this about my coaching, and I love I'm a visual person, and she said, I know a lot of people hesitate to do coaching, right? Because sometimes some of it is they don't know that it really will work. Other times it's the investment. right? And she used a great example, and she said, think of it like this. Think about it as cleaning out your closet, right? We know every woman probably needs to do that every now and again, right? And we keep delaying it, and we keep delaying it. And if your closet is like mine, you got sweatshirts that are falling down, you just keep throwing them up there, and you got shoes that should be in the holders, but they're on the floor, and it's a hot mess, right? And you're like, someday I'm going to get this up. I'm going to clean it up. And she's like, and so it's like that one Saturday that you finally commit to like getting all the junk out, and you walk in and you're like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That's what coaching can do for you. I was like, I love that metaphor because it's getting the junk that you have just been kept piling up, and finally having somebody that it doesn't necessarily isn't in your family, isn't in your circle of friends, although we can be friends and we often do become friends, but somebody from the outside that says, let's get this junk out, and the freedom that comes from that, right? And somebody that's outside that can look on to you and say, why are you doing that again, right? And be bold and direct and hold you accountable. So that's anybody that is on the fence, has been like listening to our whole conversation today and is thinking, gosh, that sounds good, but what's it going to cost? And do I really want to make the time? Just think about how more productive you can be if you go through it. And then you're going to have so much more clarity. You're going to clear all that space up for more room for joy and all the things that you've been wanting in your life. So that's what I'm with. Clean up the closet.
Clean up the
inner
closet.
closet.
Yes, the inner closet. And I like that you said that because that's actually one of the reasons I asked one of the questions about you, what sets you apart. Some people just don't know, the different types of coaching, but I love this conversation because one of my biggest takeaway is that Jill will keep you accountable and she will make sure that you get results by being authentic. We'll get to the bottom of it. And she's offering us, a chance to clean up our closet. We all need it. I know not literally closets, but we know.
Well, yeah, but we need that too.
Right. So I would love for you to take advantage of this offer. I'm going to put all the details in the link below, so you can take advantage of that. But in everything that you do, I think one of the biggest things that I'm taking away from here is that we really need to be intentional and thinking through everything that we're like going back to the basic, going back to our why and looking at our life. Like, are we getting busy? We just need that check-in every now and then so that we can come back to our true and authentic self.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yep. I always say that we lose our way when we lose our why. So knowing your why, and that's a big question. A lot of people, that's one of the questions I ask them, and it takes time to discover what that is. But once you have more clarity on that, boom, you always go back to your why, and that's what's going to set you apart and keep you from growing to the right path of life.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jill. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. Like, you've given me certainly a lot to think about. And I know a lot of people can relate to being busy and needing to go back to our authentic why, so that we don't lose our way. But for those that are listening, please reach out to Jill if you need help in this area. There's going to be the links in the comments below. But also don't forget, you own your brand. It's important that you are authentic. So make sure that everything that you do, you continue to be intentional and you're, remembering what your why is. But until next time, I'll see you soon.